The world once felt endless. Vast oceans stretched beyond imagination, and maps were filled with dragons and empty spaces marked, "Here be monsters." But in the 15th century, everything began to change. A handful of daring explorers, driven by ambition, faith, and curiosity, would redraw the map of the world and connect humanity as never before. This was the Age of Discovery. It began not with conquest, but with curiosity. In medieval Europe, knowledge of the wider world had shrunk after the fall of Rome. Trade with the East was limited to fragile routes across deserts and mountains, where silk, spices, and stories traveled from China and India to the Mediterranean. But when the Ottoman Empire captured Constantinople in 1453, the ancient trade routes closed. Europe found itself cut off from the riches of the East. The response was simple. If caravans could no longer cross the land, ships would have to cross the sea. In Portugal, a visionary prince named Henry the Navigator believed the Atlantic Ocean could be a highway to new worlds. Under his guidance, Portuguese sailors explored farther down the coast of Africa than anyone before them. They mapped new territories, established trade posts, and brought back gold, ivory, and slaves. They discovered that Africa's coastline curved eastward, a hint that perhaps one day they could sail all the way to India. Then came Bartholomew Dias. In 1488, he braved the violent storms of the southern Atlantic and became the first European to round the Cape of Good Hope, proof that the Indian Ocean could be reached by sea. 10 years later, Vasco da Gama followed in his wake, sailing from Portugal to India and opening the first direct maritime trade route between Europe and Asia. Spices, silks, and precious stones began to flow westward, and the balance of world power began to shift. But it was another voyage by a man sailing for Spain that would change history forever. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set out not to find Africa or India, but to reach Asia by sailing west. Instead, he landed in the Americas, lands unknown to Europe, Africa, and Asia alike. Though he never realized he had discovered a new continent, his voyage connected two worlds that had evolved separately for tens of thousands of years. This meeting would transform both forever. The floodgates were open. Spain and Portugal raced to claim territories across the globe. Treaties were signed to divide the world between them, half for Spain, half for Portugal, as if the planet itself were a map to be carved and owned. Explorers like Ferdinand Magellan sailed further still. His expedition, beginning in 1519, became the first to circumnavigate the globe. It proved at last that Earth was one connected world, round, vast, and navigable. The Age of Discovery unleashed wonders and horrors alike. New plants, animals, and cultures were encountered. Potatoes, maize, tomatoes, and chocolate crossed the Atlantic to Europe, while wheat, horses, and steel traveled west to the Americas. This exchange of life, the Columbian Exchange, reshaped diets, economies, and ecosystems across continents. But it also brought tragedy. European expansion spread diseases like smallpox and measles to indigenous populations, wiping out entire civilizations. Empires rose upon the ruins of others. The Atlantic slave trade began, chaining millions of Africans into one of the darkest chapters of human history. Exploration had connected the world, but at a terrible cost. Still, this new global web of trade, knowledge, and navigation transformed humanity. In the 16th century, European maps began to show a complete world, the first in history. Printing presses spread news of new lands and discoveries, inspiring new generations of explorers and thinkers. Sailors returned from every corner of the oceans, their tales blurring the line between myth and reality. Merchants grew rich, empires grew powerful, and scientists began to see the Earth as a single, discoverable planet. The Portuguese built a network of forts stretching from Africa to India and on to the Spice Islands of Indonesia. The Spanish established vast colonies in the Americas, drawing immense wealth from silver mines in Mexico and Peru. Other European powers soon joined the race. The Dutch, English, and French launched their own expeditions, eager to find routes and riches of their own. By the 1600s, the oceans had become the new battlegrounds of empire. The Age of Discovery did not simply map new lands, it changed how people saw themselves. For the first time, humanity could imagine the world as one connected whole. Ideas, technologies, and cultures began to circulate globally. Gunpowder, compass navigation, paper and printing, inventions once confined to Asia, spread westward, fueling the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. Exploration inspired art, literature, and science, transforming Europe from isolated kingdoms into global powers. Yet for all its triumphs, the Age of Discovery also revealed the moral contradictions of progress. Exploration brought enlightenment and exploitation, science and slavery, connection and conquest. It was a time of incredible courage and of cruelty, a mirror of humanity itself. By the 18th century, the great oceanic voyages had mapped nearly every coastline. From the Arctic to the Pacific, explorers like James Cook charted the final frontiers of the unknown. The Age of Discovery gave way to the Age of Empire, and with it came new questions, not just of what the world looked like, but who would rule it. Today, we live in the world that those sailors and dreamers helped create, a world of global trade, instant communication, and endless connection. Our maps are complete, yet our curiosity endures. The explorers of the 15th and 16th centuries sailed into darkness with nothing but stars to guide them. We too continue that journey, into space, into science, into the unknown. The spirit of discovery never ended. It simply changed direction. Because in the end, the Age of Discovery was never just about finding new lands. It was about finding ourselves and realizing that our world, vast as it is one shared home.